Let me tell you something right now. Going no contact with a narcissist is one of the most difficult and courageous choices you will ever make. And if you are here listening, it means you have either already done it or you are seriously considering it. But here is the reality. Just because you are finished with them does not mean they are finished with you. In fact, the very moment you become silent, that is when their real game truly begins. Because narcissists rarely just walk away. No, they plan, they calculate, and they wait patiently. They are not staying quiet because they respect your boundary. They are not avoiding you because they have moved forward. They are silent because they are carefully planning their next move. And today, I am pulling back that curtain. I am going to reveal the hidden things a narcissist secretly wants from you when you cut them off, not the obvious drama. I am talking about what is happening behind the scenes, what they hope you will do, what they are watching for, and why your silence is not rest for them. It is strategy. So if you have ever questioned your decision, if you have ever wondered why it still feels like they are pulling on your emotions, stay with me. Because by the time you finish this, you will see their strategy clearly. And even better, you will understand exactly how to win. When you go no contact with a narcissist, it creates a reaction. It might not look like a direct argument or confrontation. Sometimes it appears as something small, a post, a like, a story view, a short message, anything that proves they can still reach your emotions. Because when you go silent, their mind does not interpret that as the end. It sees it as a challenge, a test of power and influence. And trust me, they are watching. They observe every move, even when it appears as though they have forgotten about you. Why? Because your silence is not just silence to them. It is a threat to the control they once had. Narcissists survive on attention. It does not matter if it is love or anger. To them, it is all supply. When you remove contact, it is like you have cut off their oxygen. That silence and peace may feel powerful to you, but it is unbearable for them. It confuses them, frustrates them, and forces them to question their control. They cannot stand not knowing how you feel. And what they hate even more is the possibility that you might actually be okay without them. So what do? They start poking gently. At first, it is subtle. They might watch your story but never say a word. They might post something vague that seems like it could be directed at you. They might ask a mutual friend about you or interact with an old memory online, hoping it eventually reaches you. All of this is bait. They want a reaction. Any reaction proves you are still in the game, even if you believe you have stepped away. And this is where it becomes dangerous. Narcissists know your patterns. They know what irritates you and what affects you emotionally. If they cannot make you talk, they will settle for making you feel something. If they cannot pull you back into their world physically, they will settle for living inside your thoughts. They want you replaying the last argument. They want you checking their social media, wondering if they look happy. They want you angry or hurt because every emotional response, even the ones you never show, feeds their sense of power. They do not need you to message them. They only need to know that you still care. That is their victory. Because if you still care, then in their mind, the game is still active. The moment you react even slightly, a comment, an emotional post, or a shared quote that reflects how you feel, they know the door is still open. And if that door is open, they believe they can walk back in whenever they choose. Now let us talk about the mind games they often play during no contact. Sometimes they disappear completely on purpose, hoping you begin to question it. Why are they not trying to reach me? Did they forget about me that quickly? Did they ever care at all? That silence is carefully staged. It is not peace, it is provocation. They are using absence as a psychological tool to make you doubt your decision. They want your confusion to push you into breaking no contact. The moment you send that message or try to reconnect, they feel they have regained control. They do not just want a reaction, they expect it. They rely on it. Deep down, they truly believe you will not maintain the distance. They assume you will miss them, doubt yourself, and eventually give in. And if they cannot reach you directly, they will approach indirectly. They might post subtle messages, spread partial truths, or suddenly show off a new relationship. It is not because they have moved on, it is because they want to keep you watching. They want to make sure you still feel something, because feelings create attention, and attention equals control. Every action they take during no contact is deliberate. It is not growth, it is manipulation. They are not moving forward. They are attempting to pull you backward into the same cycle. They want to restart the same painful pattern. They want to ensure that even while you remain silent, they still occupy space in your mind. And every single day that you maintain your silence, you slowly reclaim your strength piece by piece. When a narcissist loses access to you, they do not suddenly become self-aware. They do not experience genuine regret. What they often do instead is twist your silence into guilt. They try to turn it into something that makes you question yourself. They crave your guilt, your hesitation, and your emotional confusion. They know guilt is one of the strongest emotional chains. If they cannot reach you physically, they will try to live inside your mind. For them, your silence is not just rejection. It feels like humiliation. It threatens their ego. But instead of confronting that reality, they rewrite the story. Suddenly, you become the cold one. You become the person who walked away without trying. You are painted as the villain. This reversal is powerful because it causes you to question your own memory. You begin replaying conversations and arguments, wondering where things truly went wrong. They want that mental loop. They want you lost in those thoughts so deeply that you start forgetting why you went no contact in the first place. They want you remembering the good moments, the charm and laughter, while ignoring the manipulation and emotional pain. They want you thinking, maybe I overreacted, or maybe they were not that bad, or maybe I gave up too quickly. That doubt becomes their back door. If they can plant even one small seed of shame in your mind, they know eventually you might feel like you owe them something, a message, an explanation, or another chance. Narcissists are experts at using empathy against you. That is one reason they were drawn to you. Your compassion, your loyalty, your emotional depth. Everything they lack becomes something they feed on. And when they cannot guilt you into returning, they will try to make you feel guilty for leaving. They might act broken, abandoned, or misunderstood. They may play the victim through other people, mutual friends, social media posts, or subtle silence designed to tug at your conscience. It is manipulation without direct contact, and it works especially when you are still healing. Because for a kind person, guilt feels heavy. They understand that and they rely on it. They do not want your love. They want your emotional energy. They want the inner tension you feel late at night when you begin wondering if you were too harsh or too sensitive. That is the outcome they hope for. They hand you their emotional chaos and watch to see if you will try to fix it. They do not want peace. They want confusion. They want your strength to feel like cruelty and your distance to feel like betrayal. And when guilt grows, it does not whisper quietly. It echoes loudly inside your thoughts. Even without contact, they want control. They want to exist in your mind. They want your obsession, not necessarily the kind where you chase them, but the kind where you cannot stop thinking about what happened. They want you wondering what you could have done differently. They want you curious about what they are doing now. If they cannot have your time or your presence, they will take your peace. Because for them, being remembered, even being hated, still feels like power. When you find yourself replaying arguments or imagining future conversations, that is the psychological loop they created. They trained your mind to question, hope, and attempt to fix things. But every time you resist the urge to reach out, you weaken that loop. You slowly replace their voice with your own. You stop asking if they will change and start reminding yourself that you deserve calm. That is where your real strength begins. Narcissists can only thrive where chaos exists. The more peace you choose, the less space they have to breathe. The quieter you remain, the weaker their invisible control becomes. Your distance is not weakness, it is recovery. It marks the end of their illusion and the beginning of your freedom. Analyzing their behavior, trying to decode their mixed signals, or constantly checking their social media is still energy. It is attention, and they enjoy knowing they can still influence you without speaking. To them, it means the connection is not completely broken. It has simply shifted. They do not need conversation when they already live inside your thoughts. This is why narcissists often end relationships surrounded by confusion. They rarely give real closure. They avoid responsibility and never fully acknowledge the pain they caused. Instead, they disappear suddenly, become cold, or vanish without explanation because confusion fuels obsession. The human mind dislikes unanswered questions. It seeks resolution. So when someone disappears without clarity, your mind tries to fill the gaps searching for meaning. And that is exactly what they rely on. The more you think, the longer they remain present in your mind. Sometimes before disappearing, they will leave small traces of hope. Maybe they talked about a future together. Maybe they apologized just enough to create uncertainty. Maybe they said they only needed space for a while. These comments are not accidental. They are breadcrumbs that keep you wondering if they will return. Every moment you spend trapped in that mental cycle benefits them. Even their silence can be calculated. By remaining quiet, they know your mind will begin working overtime, asking questions. You may start wondering if they ever cared or if you did something wrong. That emptiness becomes an echo chamber that keeps your thoughts focused on them. They may not contact you directly, but they might post something suggestive or a photo that makes it appear they are happy and thriving. None of it is random. It is meant to keep you emotionally spinning. The obsession they create is not about love or missing the good memories. It is about emotional control. They want your healing to move slowly. They want your confidence to remain tied to their approval. They want your memories of them to interrupt your peace and progress. Because if they still exist in your thoughts, they still matter. And fading into irrelevance is the one thing they fear the most. That is why detaching from a narcissist is not only about blocking them or cutting communication. It is about reclaiming your mental and emotional space. As long as they live in your thoughts, they can still affect your life without being present. They built a version of themselves inside your mind that constantly replays memories and questions everything. Sometimes you might not even notice you are doing it. You may think it is simply part of healing. But to the narcissist, that lingering focus becomes a delayed source of supply. It feeds their ego even in silence. So even without direct contact, the game continues through the emotional residue they left behind. They rely on you to carry it and revisit it. They want to remain unforgettable even if it is through pain. When a narcissist faces no contact, they rarely interpret it as a boundary. They see it as a pause in their game. They assume you will return one day, maybe not immediately, but eventually. They believe this because they spent time conditioning your emotions through cycles of affection, devaluation, and chaos. They trained you to crave their approval and fear losing them. So when you step away, they often simply wait, believing you will break the silence first. They assume their influence is permanent. They trust that time and nostalgia will soften your memory. Sometimes they will twist your silence into a weapon by telling others you abandoned them or that you became distant without reason. They do this to reshape the story and appear like the victim. If they convince others that you overreacted, it keeps the door open for future manipulation. And if you feel misunderstood, you might try to explain yourself, which is exactly what they want. In their mind, you are not truly done. They believe you are just emotional and will eventually return once you calm down. That is why some narcissists do not rush to contact you when you go silent. It is not because they have moved on. It is because they are calculating and waiting. They want to see how long you can maintain your distance. They want proof that the emotional dependency they created still exists. If you reach out even once, they take it as confirmation. To them, it is never about love. It is about ownership. They believe they still own a piece of your heart, and time becomes their ally because they know memories can fade and nostalgia can soften the truth. If they sense you are moving forward, they may quietly reappear. A simple message checking in, a song you both once loved, a memory from the past. These gestures are not signs of growth. They are carefully timed tests to see if the door is still unlocked. The most difficult part of no contact is not the silence. It is letting go of the illusion that one day they will become the person they pretended to be. Narcissists understand this hope and they use it. They know you want answers and closure. That is why they often do not chase you. They assume eventually you will chase them. When they lose direct access, they focus on controlling the narrative. They begin sharing their version of the story through friends, social circles, or social media. They might say they do not understand what happened or claim they tried everything, but you refuse to talk. These statements seem harmless, but they are strategic. They make you appear cold while they appear wounded and misunderstood. Narcissists are often charming and convincing, so outsiders easily believe them. Image means everything to them. Being viewed as the villain threatens their identity. When you go no contact, they lose control over how they are perceived. So they rush to fill that empty space with half-truths and subtle lies. They cannot tolerate the possibility that people might hear your side of the story. Sometimes they will post vague messages about betrayal or recovering from toxic people, timed perfectly to make it appear they are healing from someone like you. It is a performance. And it often works because most people never witnessed what you experienced behind closed doors. They never saw the manipulation, the emotional chaos, or the silent punishments. They only see the image the narcissist chooses to show. That is why protecting your peace means more than simply blocking them. It means refusing to defend yourself to people who already believe their narrative. In the end, silence becomes power when it is intentional. Detachment becomes victory when it is chosen. And the moment you stop trying to prove your truth to people determined to misunderstand you is the moment your real healing finally begins.